So you might have heard recently with the bulk, everyone telling you to eat a lot, eat more food, because that's the way you get stronger. But this is good to an extent, but really with the bulk you have to be careful because there can be a lot of negative side effects, so a lot of issues that come with the bulk. This isn't with the lean bulk, it's mainly with the dirty bulk. And what I mean by that is bulking in a 1000 calorie surplus, or being very, I guess, generous with your calories to the point where you're probably gaining a kilogram a week, which can be too much in this case. Now, when bulking, the main problem people have is trying to chow down more food, trying to get more food down into the system. And that's because you're trying to eat at a surplus, which is above your maintenance calories. And it is manageable if you're, say, having, maybe a few hundred calories above your maintenance. But when it comes to a 1000 calorie or 2000 calorie surplus, eating that much food, no matter how big you may get, it'll all just be fat. You'll have to cut down in the later months, and this isn't very optimal, but we'll get more onto that later. With the bulk, when you're dirty bulking, you're at risk of developing high cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes, all these other issues. Because when you're bulking at a surplus, your body produces androgens. So when you have gained a lot of weight from the dirty bulk, you can have excess androgens, which is basically hyperandrogenism, which is basically a lot of issues. Because with the weight gain, you have added fat, and these added fats can lead to diabetes, problems with your metabolism, problems with your heart, and at the end of the day, it's just not worth it. Even if it's, for the purpose of a dirty bulk, the purpose to get stronger, your body simply will have irreversible effects. And you have to keep in mind, with bodybuilding, it's something that you're going to continue on for months and months and months, maybe even years or your entire life. So you want to make sure when doing this, you have a good capability. You're not really going to ruin your whole life over one bulk. It's never worth it. Now, bulking also matters in terms of what food you eat as well, because you want to make sure you're consuming good foods despite being in a bulk. And that's because you can develop the extra diseases like I mentioned before, but when you do take into consideration eating more cleaner foods or eating less saturated foods in the bulk, your risk of developing these diseases are much lower, and that's very beneficial in this case. So how should you go about the bulk? Pretty much a slight surplus is all you need, so maybe 100 to 300 calories. You can do 500, but then that's just increased fat gain at that rate, although it is possible. But I'd probably recommend a 100 to 300 calorie surplus. And with this, if you're already eating at maintenance, it's not that hard to just go 100 calories above. And with that, you won't gain fat very much, but you'll still be able to maintain your leanness year round. And that's pretty much optimal for bodybuilding, because the less fat you have, the more you're able to build muscle quickly, which is very good. Now, to go about this, if you're already, fat, or if you already have a lot of body weight on you, I'd recommend cutting down first, because if you don't cut and you just continue to bulk, you'll never really be defined. You will get muscle and you will get stronger, but you'll just be fat at the end of the day. You'll still have a lot of weight. And the only way to get through this is to cut down weight. And so I'd first recommend cutting down first before you get into a surplus. Now, with the bulk, if you take it too far, it can make you forget why you're going to gym. Because with the bulk, you have extra fat on you. And then this fat pretty much removes any definition from your body, removes any striations. And you just sort of look big at the moment, which isn't a bad thing. But you want to make sure you are aesthetic and you have your leanness and you have your muscles to show. Strength is nice, but it is important to take into consideration the muscles. So at the end of the day, I always recommend a clean bulk and just take things slowly. Same thing goes for the cutting as well, which I'll make another video. A slow and steady principle always follows, because at the end of the day, it's always better to be safe than sorry. Now, steroids and all those other enhancements aren't really included in this conversation because they already have their own parts. But since I'm not experienced with steroids, I can't speak in this matter. But from what I know, steroids pretty much allow you to keep your muscles year round without having to do much, and pretty much keep you lean. So that's cheat code. Thank you very much for watching.